What is a story?
I think in its simplest form, a story is the human experience. Because if you notice, like when people write stories that are like, oh, it's just about magic and it's just like, it's wild things going on and it's fun and it's funny, but there's no human experience, there's no heartbreak, there's no loss, there's no love, between two people or the love of a cheeseburger, whatever it is, like what the human experience is about loss, it's about love, it's about wanting, it's about hope, it's about friendship, it's about family, whether you're losing the family, gaining the family. It's like never forget if you want to tell a story about a spaceship, if there isn't a human aspect to the experience, then you're not really telling a story. You're just telling us about a spaceship. We need to know who lives in it, who lives in the spaceship, what their lives are about, what do they want, what's their history, so that we know where they're going, we know what we're following. That person's want, that desire to live the human experience is the story. So I hope that's clear, but I definitely think ultimately your stories have to have those things. It has to have love, it has to have loss. Not all at the same time. It can be just one of them, but some aspect of the human experience is what your story needs to be about.
What is character flaw and why is it so important to creating story?
Oof. Character flaw is the story or it is the journey, I would say. So I would say that the character flaw is the journey of the story. If your character doesn't have a flaw that they need to overcome, it's going to be difficult, I think, as a storyteller to figure out the journey that they need to go on to overcome that flaw. So if your character has no flaw, what exactly are we watching? We're watching someone who wants something and can easily get it and nothing's going to stand in their way and then nothing does and then they get it, end of story. That's not a story, or at least it's not a satisfying one. But if you're watching somebody who wants something and it's very hard for them to get it because of who they are, because of something that they are struggling with internally. And then we represent that internal struggle in the physical world. So let's say I'm a very shy girl who really wants to sing on American Idol. So that is the physical representation of my internal flaw, which is that I'm shy. And why am I shy? Because of some like core wound where, maybe let's say my dad always told me that I was ugly or that I should always be in the background. My dad never did that. My dad's awesome. But like wherever the flaw is coming from, and the flaw doesn't have to be something that is like an obvious flaw. It doesn't have to be like, oh, she's flawed because she has a birthmark, like a literal flaw. It doesn't have to be like a literal or obvious flaw, like this person is like really selfish. It could be something that that becomes a flaw because maybe the person loves too much or something like that. And their external representation of that is that they are in they need to find their partner in a dating game show, and that's like the whole episode of TV, or maybe it's the whole movie, and them not being able to do it because they love too much. But point of the matter is, like, your internal flaw, your flaw is what directs you as a writer to figure out what journey your character is going on, because whatever the internal flaw is, you'll be able to reflect it in their physical reality in the story.
Is there a character you can think of, male or female, where you loved how the flaw was portrayed and it made them more human?
I'm trying to remember the name of this movie. So I think in Palm Springs, You have in the female character a woman who like really doesn't believe in love, and you have Andy Samberg, who is someone who just thinks that, you know, nothing matters anymore because he's been reliving the same day over and over for God knows how long. And, you know, in the movie, her flaw is portrayed to be someone who's kind of like, you know, it's well-worn territory. She's like cold. She doesn't believe in love. She's kind of like heartless because of some, I don't want to ruin the movie, some bad experience that she had. And what's interesting was that the resolution to the movie, the way that they figure their way out of the time warp, it's her flaw that helps her figure out her way out of the time warp. It's her dogged, relentless drive. It's how smart she is. It's how irreverent she is. How much gumption she has. So like the things that are kind of negative about her that like make her and Andy Samberg butt heads is also the thing that gets them out of the time warp. I don't know where they end up, if they actually end up in like present time, but like the way that they used her flaw, I thought was like really creative and really true to life, that things don't always resolve perfectly, and the things that we think are not, the things that we think about ourselves that are flaws are also our strengths sometimes. So I really love the message of that movie.
Why is change important in a story?
Yeah, I think change is the story. I think there is no story if there's no change, if there's no realization, if there's no resolution. Like the change is what marks the end of our story. So it's hugely important.
Even with Groundhog Day or Palm Springs,
Yeah.
is it? Mm-hmm. There it sounds like there's little bits of change that finally get the characters to evolve in some way.
Absolutely, and that's the big difference between like a feature film or a TV episode. Even in a TV episode, you have 30 minutes to show a character or characters go through some change. In the film, you have about 90 minutes to show a character go through change, but change nonetheless, whether it's in 90 minutes or 30 minutes. So it's very much like if there is no change, if your character doesn't undergo some sort of change, whether it's a change in their perspective, a change in their attitude, a change in something, a change in direction, then we really didn't end the story, didn't really resolve it.
Is that something that's the most, I wouldn't say contentious in the TV writers' room, but where the writers as a group are figuring the way out of the story? Or are people taking turns with different episodes, so that's not really an issue?
I mean, the writers' rooms that I've worked in have all been extremely collaborative. So, you know, in order for us to write a story together, we have to be on the same page. And I wouldn't say that it's contentious. I would say that usually the beginning is a little bit more contentious because the premise, the beginning, determines the outcome. So, like even in the Grand Crew writers' room, I remember we had a really big debate in the room about whether or not Noah and Simone should get married because at the end of season 1, he proposes. And I won't ruin it for anybody who hasn't watched it, but I love Grand Crew. You should definitely watch it. But like, the contentious part is the beginning. Do we answer this question? How do we answer this question? Is it a yes or a no? Because the way that we answer the question determines everything. It determines the end of that episode. It determines the season. It determines the season finale. So it's just like, I think the way you start is so much more important because your end organically comes from your beginning.